Why Japanese children learn independence so early. There is a moment happening inside your child right now that almost no parent is ever told about. At Tohoku University, researchers tracking early self-regulation found that a child's sense of "I can do this myself" starts forming years before they can actually do most things themselves. It is not the toy, it is not the flashcards, it is not even the school. Most parents assume independence comes from teaching kids to do things. Researchers who study this closely have found something almost the opposite. Independence comes from parents doing less, in very specific, very small moments. And near the end of this list, there is one particular moment, something that happens almost every single day, that changes everything about how a child learns to trust themselves. You will never see it the same way again. 1. The space you leave before you step in. Developmental psychologist Joseph Tobin, who spent years comparing preschools in Japan, China, and the United States, documented something Japanese teachers call mimamoru, watchful waiting. When a child struggles, the adult does not rush in. They watch, close by, ready but still. For your child, this tiny pause is enormous. It tells their brain, "I am safe enough to try this alone." A parent who waits one extra breath before helping is not being cold. They are quietly saying, "I believe you can do this." 2. The small job you let them fail at. Psychologist Albert Bandura's research on self-efficacy found that real confidence is not built by being told you're capable. It is built by mastery experiences, small, real attempts, including the ones that go wrong. So when your toddler struggles to pour their own water and spills half of it, that mess is not a setback. It is the exact material their confidence is made from. Every small task you let them finish imperfectly is a brick in a foundation no compliment could ever build. 3. The goodbye you don't drag out. John Bowlby's attachment research, later expanded by Mary Ainsworth's studies on secure base behavior, found that children explore most freely when their goodbyes are brief, warm, and predictable. Long, anxious departures actually make separation harder, not easier. A short hug and a steady voice tells your child something a lingering goodbye cannot, that you trust the world enough to leave them in it for a while. The shorter your goodbye, the bigger the world your child feels safe stepping into. 4. The chore you hand them before you think they're ready. At the University of Minnesota, researcher Marty Rossman followed children for over 20 years and found that those who started doing regular chores as early as 3 or 4 grew into more capable, independent, and successful young adults than those who started later or not at all. Not because the chore itself mattered, because being trusted with something real did. Handing your child a task before you feel fully sure they can do it is not carelessness. It is the exact moment their competence begins to grow into the space you gave it. And if today wasn't one of those days, if you helped more than you meant to, or skipped the chore altogether, that is nothing to carry. One day like this changes nothing. What shapes a child is the pattern over months, not the moment. If this is resonating with you, this is exactly the kind of thing we talk about every single week here. 5. The question you ask instead of the instruction you give. Researchers at Harvard's Center on the Developing Child have spent years studying what they call serve and return interactions, the back and forth exchanges that build the child's executive function, the mental skills behind planning, focus, and self-control. When you ask, "What do you think we should do?" instead of simply telling them, you are handing your child a tiny rehearsal for real decision-making. Every question you ask instead of an answer you hand over is a small deposit into a mind learning to think for itself. 6. The mistake you let them watch you make. Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset found that children who see adults struggle, get something wrong, and recover calmly come to believe that mistakes are simply part of learning, not something to fear. When you drop something, say the wrong word, or get flustered in front of your child, and then just calmly carry on, you are teaching them something no lecture could. Your calm after your own mistake is quietly teaching your child that falling short is never the end of the story. 7. The timer you don't rush to beat. Psychologist Walter Mischel's famous delay of gratification studies at Stanford found that children who practiced waiting, even briefly, developed stronger self-control years later, not because they were naturally patient, but because they got small, repeated chances to practice it. When you let your child wait an extra minute for their snack, or sit with "not yet" instead of "right now," you are not being strict. You are letting them rehearse a skill they will use their whole life. A little bit of waiting, held gently, is one of the quietest gifts you can hand your child. 8. The buttons you let them fumble with. Psychologist Erik Erikson's stage theory of development named early childhood the stage of autonomy versus shame and doubt, the years when a child's sense of self hinges on being allowed to do small physical things on their own: dressing, feeding, washing. Every extra 30 seconds you give your 3-year-old to wrestle with their own zipper is not lost time. It is identity being built, one fumble at a time. Let them struggle with the button. That struggle is quietly becoming who they are. 9. The boredom you don't rescue them from. Researcher Teresa Belton, who studies boredom and creativity in children, found that kids who are regularly allowed to sit in unstructured, unfilled time develop stronger imagination and self-direction than children whose every moment is entertained or scheduled. When you resist the urge to hand over a screen the second your child says, "I'm bored," you are not neglecting them. You are giving their mind room to invent its own next move. An empty afternoon, left alone, is where your child quietly learns how to entertain themselves for life. 10. And this one is the quiet heart of the whole list. The hand you let go of at the door. Researcher Meyer Hillman spent decades comparing children's independent mobility across countries and found that Japanese children, some as young as 6, are regularly allowed to walk to school alone, not because their parents worry less, because their culture has quietly decided that early, small doses of unsupervised responsibility build the confidence and judgment children will need for the rest of their lives. For your child, that moment at the door, the one where you stay behind and they walk on without you, is not a small goodbye. It is a rehearsal for every future moment they will need to trust themselves without you standing there. Letting go of their hand for 30 seconds is how they learn to hold on to themselves for a lifetime. So it does matter. Every pause you allow, every mistake you let them make, every small task you hand over before you feel ready, none of it is nothing. It is quietly becoming the shape of who they'll grow into. If this changed the way you'll see tomorrow morning, hit subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of thing we explore every week here. And tell me in the comments, what's one small thing your child already does on their own that surprised you the first time you saw it? I read every single one.